Hi guys, and welcome back to Caterpillar Cross Stitch. In today's video I'm going to show you how you can turn your finished cross stitch piece into a beautiful wall hanging to display, whether that's just at Christmas or all year round. Here is the cross stitch piece that we're going to be talking about today. It's called Deck the Halls and it's the Christmas 2019 Stitch Along project. Instead of mounting the finished pieces onto foam board or framing them, I thought it would be really interesting with this one to turn it into a wall hanging because of the length of it, because it's something that at Christmas time you might only have out from November up to January or up to New Year, and I think it suits it really well to have it as a wall hanging like any other Christmas decoration really. So I thought what better time to film the entire process. So if you have done the Deck the Halls stitch along, then keep watching to find out how you can turn this into the wall hanging too. And if you haven't done Deck the Halls stitch along, where have you been? But also you can turn any finished cross stitch piece into wall hanging easily by following this step-by-step tutorial. So enjoy!
So the first thing you're going to need to do with your finished cross stitch piece is to iron it. If you need to wash it because it might have got a little bit grubby, then go ahead and do that. I'll put a link in the description box below to my video where I show you how I wash my finished projects. But for now, let's assume it's nice and clean. So what you'll need to do is place it face down in between two damp tea towels and iron it on a gentle setting. You can increase the temperature of the iron if you need to. If there are any stubborn marks around the edge from a frame or a hoop, then increase the temperature. But for now, give it a nice iron over, make sure it's nice and smooth and ready to be finished off. And also sometimes if it does need it, I give it a little bit of extra spray on the actual cross stitch piece itself, just using this water bottle. So these are the things that you're going to need to make your wall hanging. A wooden rod, and I'll put the link to the one I've used in the description box below, a pair of scissors, some glass head pins, these are from Prism, I'll link those down below as well, a tape measure, I've got some grey cotton here which matches the backing fabric colour, 3 different colours of kind of this ribbony rope type thing to hang it with, some weighted thread, and then I've got this pale grey and white Christmas themed fabric to back the piece with, and this padding to put inside. And of course a sewing machine. You can also do this completely by hand, but it's just quicker and easier to do it with a sewing machine if you've got one. So measure up your finished cross stitch piece and decide how much allowance you want on each of the edges. Once you've got your final measurements, you know exactly how much inside padding you need to cut out, ready to sew it in. I'd suggest making the internal padding ever so slightly smaller than the finished cross stitch piece size, just so that it slots inside nicely. Once you've done that, fold over the edges of the cross stitch piece like so that you can just double check it's exactly how you want it and you know the dimensions ready to measure out to correspond also to the backing fabric size you need to trim. So I'm just checking here that the inside padding actually fits nicely within those 2 folded over edges of the cross stitch piece. Next I'm putting the backing fabric, the Christmas themed fabric, and the cross stitch piece front side to front side. So on the outside it's the 2 back sides, if you know what I mean. And then I'm pinning down the edge and sewing that up. So the 2 front sides are together so that when you fold this back out, it'll be the right way around. So I've just sewn all the way along that one edge with the sewing machine using the pale grey cotton. I've turned this round the right way and then I'm going to stitch by hand inside the inside padding, just using a really loose stitch just to make sure that the padding is in fact attached to that side seam. Next I'm going to use the sewing machine again to sew down the other long edge of the cross stitch piece to attach that to the other side of the backing fabric. So again, the piece when I'm stitching here is always inside out. If you've used a sewing machine before, you'll know exactly how tricky this part is, threading the actual needle and making sure that the cottons stay where they're supposed to. Again, I'd recommend pinning down that one edge just so everything's nice and neatly held together while you're sewing, because sometimes the sewing machine can pull the fabric a little bit and we do not want a wonky wall hanging. So when you finish sewing down the final long edge, turn the whole piece the right way round. Then you should end up with your inside filler neatly inside the cross stitch front and the backing fabric. What I've done on the top edge then, it might not be the neatest, and you could potentially actually sew the top edge of the cross stitch fabric inside the backing fabric. But just to make this a really simple tutorial, the easiest thing to do is to flap over that top edge, making sure that you're going to allow enough room inside to fit your wooden dowel essentially, and just stitch that really neatly by hand. Then I've inserted the wooden rod, put on the other end, and the top section is complete. Now onto the bottom. This weighted thread rope type stuff I absolutely love. I never knew about it before. It's really fascinating. It's so heavy, but doesn't look like it at all. So again, I just folded that over itself, checked how much I needed. I held it up a few times just to make sure it held it down nicely so that the whole thing was completely flat. And I'm just stitching that inside the bottom flap by hand, just trying to make it neat, tucking inside any corners of the cross stitch fabric or the backing fabric. Make sure to stitch up the corners and the sides just so that you don't see any of the weighted thread or any of it escapes. Next comes the fun part, to choose which colour ribbon thread you want to hang it up with. So I actually bought a few options from the shop. I think I got these from Hobbycraft here in England. I've gone for a dark blue, red and white. All of them match colours within the actual cross stitch piece itself. I was going to go with the red, but decided in the end just to stick with plain white so that the colours on the cross stitch piece would pop rather than focusing on the ribbon. I just wound that round either end of the wooden dowel 3 times, I believe, and then just tied it on the back really easily with a knot. It doesn't get in the way, no one's going to see the back anyway, and it means that if you change your mind, you can quite easily take it off and change the colour out. It makes sure everything's really secure and it's ready to be hung up on your wall, ready to display for Christmas.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Please do leave me a comment down below. Follow the links in the description box to join the Facebook group, check out the website, and don't forget to sign up for the newsletter for 10% off your first ever order and a free ebook of cross stitch patterns which is added to regularly. And finally, please do subscribe and support this channel. I would love to grow this community and I upload new cross stitch videos regularly. Thank you so much and I'll speak to you soon. Bye!